Picture yourself in 1720, a female pirate shackled in a sweltering Jamaican courtroom. The judge's glares cut deeper than any blade, not just for your crimes but for daring to live free as a woman. Can you escape a system rigged to erase you? Or will your defiance seal your doom? Step into Spanish Town, Jamaica, 1720. The courtroom smells of salt and damp wood. You're a female pirate, wrists raw from iron chains, standing before men in powdered wigs who see you as a monster. In the Golden Age of Piracy, piracy was a crime against the British Empire, but a woman committing it? That was a sin against nature itself. The British Admiralty courts tasked with enforcing maritime law weren't places for justice. They were stages for judgment, where female pirates faced a double sentence for their actions and their audacity. These weren't fair trials. No juries sat in the dim light. Instead, a handful of naval officers or colonial governors held your fate. The law, written by men who believed women belonged at home, branded female pirates as unnatural. Verdicts were often decided before you spoke. The room buzzed with theatrics, testimonies from ship captains, coerced sailors or merchants. Eager to see you hang, your voice? It barely mattered. The Empire needed you guilty to keep its order intact. Bonny and Mary Read, two of history's most infamous female pirates, faced this in November 1720. Captured with Calico Jack Rackham's crew, they stood, trial in Spanish Town. The courtroom was alive with whispers. Sailors spoke of Bonny's fierce temper, how she fought harder than most men. They described Read, disguised as a man for years, cutting down foes with ease. The judges didn't admire their courage. They saw rebellion against the crown and against womanhood. Anne, unbowed, lashed out at Jack as they faced death. "If you'd fought like a man, we wouldn't be here." Her words were a spark in the darkness, but they couldn't stop the gavel. Their only hope was a rare loophole, pleading the belly. Claiming pregnancy could delay execution, as the law spared unborn children. Bonny and Read declared it, and doctors confirmed. The noose waited, but for now they lived. Most female pirates weren't so fortunate. Many stood silent, knowing the court had already condemned them. The judge's contempt wasn't just for piracy. It was for women who dared to sail, fight, and live free. Imagine Jane, a lesser-known pirate captured off Nassau in 1718. She joined a crew to escape a brutal marriage, trading a life of servitude for the open sea. In court, she told her story, but the judges scoffed. A woman fleeing abuse was no excuse for piracy. She was sentenced to hang, her voice drowned by the Empire's need for control. Jane's tale, like many, was barely recorded, lost to a history that favored the powerful. These trials were more than legal proceedings. They were battles over power. The Empire needed to show that no one, especially not a woman, could challenge its rules and walk free. Female pirates were doubly guilty, for breaking laws and breaking norms. The courtroom was a stage, and their punishment was the climax. Crowds gathered outside, eager for news of the unnatural women who dared to be bold. The Empire's message was clear: defy us and you'll pay. This resonates today. Systems still judge those who step out of line, especially women who challenge expectations. Female pirates faced rigged trials not just for their crimes, but for their courage. Their stories remind us of the cost of defiance and the power of standing tall. Bonny's sharp words, Mary Read's hidden identity, these were acts of resistance, proof that even in chains they refused to be silenced. What can we take from this? The courtroom was a trap, but it was also a mirror, reflecting a world that feared free women. Their trials ask us to question who writes the rules, who decides who's remembered. Their defiance lives on, urging us to speak for those the world tries to erase. The Thames churns below and a noose swings above. You're a female pirate, dragged through jeering crowds to execution dock. Will your final stand defy the Empire's cruelty, or will your death be their grim spectacle? Don't look away. This truth will haunt you. London, 1720s. The air is thick with river mist and the crowd's restless energy. You're a female pirate, hands bound, rattling in a cart toward Wapping's execution dock. The gallows loom ahead, a dark silhouette against the gray Thames. Your heart pounds, not just from fear but from the weight of eyes. Hundreds, maybe thousands watching you. In the Golden Age of Piracy, piracy was a capital crime, no mercy offered. The Piracy Act of 1698 was clear. Steal on the seas and you'll pay with your life. But for a woman like you, the punishment carries extra venom. You're not just a criminal, you're a defiance of nature. A woman who dared sail where men ruled. Today, the Empire will make you a lesson. Execution Dock wasn't just a place. It was a theater of terror. The British Empire designed executions to crush rebellion and awe onlookers. Pirates, male or female, were paraded from Newgate Prison through London's crowded streets. The cart's wheels creaked and the crowd's shouts, some curses, some gasps followed you. A woman in the cart was a rare sight, and that rarity drew larger crowds. You weren't just a pirate, you were a spectacle, a woman who broke every rule of a man's world. The Empire needed your death to restore order, to show that no one, especially not a woman, could challenge its power and live. The ritual was brutal by design. No swift drop to snap your neck. The noose was tied short, leaving you to choke slowly, your body jerking in what sailors grimly called the marshal's dance. The crowd watched, some cheering, others silent as you struggled for breath. For female pirates, the spectacle was even more intense. Your presence on the gallows challenged the era's rigid gender norms. Women were meant to be delicate, obedient, confined to homes or hearths. A woman with a cutlass, commanding a ship, that was unthinkable, a myth made flesh. Your death was meant to kill that myth. Take Mary Critchett, an American woman who turned pirate in 1729. She joined a crew of escaped convicts, plundering ships off Virginia's coast. Captured and tried in Williamsburg, she faced a court that saw no need for deliberation. No plea of pregnancy could save her. She was marched to a local gallows, the crowd's eyes fixed on her. Unlike London's execution dock, her execution lacked fanfare, but the message was the same. Defy the Empire and you'll hang. Her body dangled as a warning, her story fading into obscurity. For the worst offenders, gibbeting followed, corpses left hanging until three tides washed over them. A gruesome reminder to sailors and townsfolk. While gibbeting was rarer for women, the threat alone was a weapon, chilling anyone who dreamed of the Black Flag. Imagine Sarah, a fictional but plausible pirate, captured off Barbados in 1719. She'd sailed for years, her name whispered in Caribbean taverns as a fierce fighter. Her trial was swift, her fate sealed. As she walked to the gallows, the crowd roared, some hurling insults, others staring in awe. Sarah's eyes burned with defiance, even as the noose tightened. She spoke no final words, but her gaze said enough. You can kill me, but you won't break me. Her death was a spectacle, but her courage was a spark. A story that should have lived but was buried by the Empire's need for control. These executions were more than punishment. They were power plays. The Empire needed to show it, could crush rebellion, especially from women who defied both law and gender. The gallows weren't just wood and rope. They were symbols, built to terrify. Yet some women refused to bow. A defiant glance, a whispered curse. These were their final acts of resistance, small but searing. The crowd might jeer, but some walked away uneasy, haunted by the strength they'd seen. This resonates today. Public punishments, whether physical or social, still silence those who challenge power. Female pirates faced the noose not just for piracy, but for daring to be free. Their deaths were meant to erase them, to ensure no one followed their path. But their stories endure, whispering through history. They challenge us to ask, who decides who's a villain? Who controls the narrative? The gallows were meant to end their tale, but their defiance lives on, urging us to look closer. Consider the modern parallel. Society still judges those who break norms, especially women who refuse to conform. The crowds at execution dock are gone, but social media, public opinion, or legal systems can still hang those who step out of line. Female pirates remind us that defiance comes at a cost, but it also leaves a mark. Their deaths were spectacles, but their courage was a legacy. They ask us to question power, to honor the silenced, to tell the stories history tried to bury. What can we learn? Execution Dock was a stage, but the real drama was in the women who faced it. Their final moments weren't just endings, they were challenges. They dared us to see them, to remember them. Their deaths were meant to scare, but their lives inspire. As you picture that noose, ask yourself, what does it mean to stand tall even when the world wants you broken? Share your thoughts below, because these women's stories deserve to be heard. A whip cracks, tearing your skin as a crowd cheers for your shame. You're a female pirate tied to a post defying a world that wants you broken. Will your silence outlast their cruelty, or will the pain erase your fire? This brutal truth will grip you. The year is 1720, and you're standing on a sun-scorched dock in a Caribbean port. The crowd presses close, their eyes hungry for spectacle. You're a female pirate, wrists bound to a wooden post, facing the cat-o'-nine-tails, a whip designed to rip flesh with every strike. In the Golden Age of Piracy, flogging wasn't just punishment, it was a public lesson, a way to break your body and spirit. For women like you, it was worse. Your defiance on the high seas made you a legend, but now, your suffering is the Empire's warning. Step out of line, and this is your fate. Flogging was a favorite tool of colonial governors and naval authorities. The cat-o'-nine-tails, with its knotted cords often laced with bone or metal, could scar with a single lash. A dozen strikes left you bleeding. 100 could kill. These punishments were staged in public, on docks, outside prison gates, or in town squares. Men, women, even children gathered to watch, some cheering, others wincing. A female pirate being flogged was a rare, shocking sight. Society expected women to be fragile, obedient, confined to domestic life. A woman who fought alongside men, who plundered ships and laughed in the face of storms, was a scandal. Your pain was their proof that order could be restored. The ritual was deliberate. The executioner would pause between lashes, letting the crowd savor your agony. Each crack of the whip was a message. Rebellion, especially from a woman, would not be tolerated. The Empire needed everyone to see you broken, your defiance reduced to blood and screams. For female pirates, the humiliation was layered. Your body, once a symbol of strength on the seas, became a canvas of control. The crowd didn't just see a criminal. They saw a woman who dared too much, now brought low. While records don't confirm Bonny or Mary read facing the whip, others weren't spared. Picture Eliza, a pirate captured in the West Indies in 1721. She joined a crew after escaping a life of servitude, her skill with a pistol earning her respect among sailors. But when her ship was taken, the court in Barbados sentenced her to 20 lashes before her trial. Tied to a post on the docks, she faced the crowd's jeers. The first lash tore her skin, but she clenched her jaw, refusing to cry out. By the 10th, blood stained the cobblestones, yet her silence was louder than the whip. Her story, like so many, was barely recorded, a fleeting note in a colonial ledger. But her defiance lingered, a whisper of resistance against a system that demanded submission. Flogging served two purposes: deterrence and degradation. The Empire wanted potential rebels, sailors, outcasts, women, to see the cost of defiance. For female pirates, the punishment was especially cruel. Their presence on pirate ships challenged the era's rigid gender norms. A woman who fought like a man was a threat, not just to ships, but to society's core. The whip was meant to erase that threat, to show that no woman could rise above her place and survive. The public setting amplified the shame. Townsfolk, from merchants to children, saw the blood, heard the cracks, and learned the price of rebellion. This wasn't just physical pain, it was psychological warfare. The Empire knew that humiliating a female pirate in front of a crowd would ripple outward. Stories of her suffering would spread, discouraging others from following her path. Yet some women refused to break. A silent stare, a clenched fist, these were acts of defiance, small but powerful. They showed that even under the whip, their spirit endured. Today, this resonates deeply. Public shaming, whether through physical punishment or modern means like social media pylons, still targets those who challenge norms. Female pirates faced the whip not just for piracy, but for daring to be free, to live beyond society's rules. Their pain was a spectacle, but their resilience was a legacy. Think of modern parallels. Women who speak out, who defy expectations, often face backlash designed to silence them. The whip may be gone, but the intent, control through shame, lingers. Consider a modern example. A woman today who challenges a powerful system, perhaps by exposing corruption or breaking gender barriers, might face public vilification. The top crowd's jeers have moved online, but the goal is the same: to break her spirit, to make her an example. Female pirates like Eliza remind us that defiance carries a cost, but it also carries power. Their silence under the lash was a rebellion, a refusal to let the empire win completely. What can we learn? Flogging was a tool of fear, but it couldn't extinguish courage. These women's scars told a story of resistance, even if history tried to forget them. Their pain was meant to warn, but it also inspired. They challenge us to question: who gets punished and why? Who decides what's shameful? Their stories demand we look closer at the past and at ourselves. They ask us to honor the silenced, to carry their defiance forward. As you picture that whip, think: what does it mean to stand tall when the world wants you broken? Share your thoughts below, because these women's voices deserve to echo. You're a female pirate, spared the gallows but robbed of your name. The sea was your freedom. Now chains drag you into a life of servitude. Will your story vanish forever, or will your defiance somehow endure? Don't miss this haunting truth. It'll shake you. The Caribbean sun burns overhead, Portobello, 1680s. You're a female pirate pulled from a captured ship, your cutlass long gone. The crowd in this bustling colonial port parts as you're led, not to a gallows but to a fate quieter and no less cruel. The empire has decided you won't hang, not today. Instead, you'll disappear into servitude, your name erased, your story buried. In the Golden Age of Piracy, not every female pirate faced the rope. Some were forced into lives of concubinage or slavery, their defiance drowned in silence. This wasn't mercy. It was a different kind of punishment, one that history barely whispers about. In colonial ports, Caribbean, West African, or American, the fate of captured women varied, but it was rarely kind. Spanish and Portuguese colonies, where the lines between piracy, privateering, and slavery blurred, were especially ruthless. Women found aboard pirate ships, whether crew or captives, were often treated as spoils of war. Archival records from Portobello and Cartagena in the late 1600s mention women taken from vessels and sold into bondage. If you were of African or indigenous descent, your fate was almost certain: absorption into the plantation economy or domestic service. Your past as a pirate, your courage on the seas meant nothing. You were property now, your identity stripped away. Picture Maria, a fictional but plausible pirate, captured off Panama in 1685. She'd sailed with a crew that raided Spanish galleons, her skill with a pistol earning her a fearsome reputation. When her ship fell, she expected death. Instead, she was marched to a market in Portobello, her hands bound, her spirit still fierce. A merchant bought her, not for her strength but for her labor. She was sent to a plantation, her days now spent toiling under a brutal sun. No one recorded her name or her story. Maria vanished, like so many others, into the empire's machine of control. Her defiance, once a spark that lit up the seas, was snuffed out in silence. The records are scarce, and that's no coincidence. History was written by the victors, men, colonizers, the powerful. Female pirates, especially those of color, were rarely deemed worthy of note. A European woman might occasionally make it into a court transcript, like Bonny or Mary Red. But non-European women? They were footnotes, if that. In Spanish colonies, a captured woman might be labeled pirate's consort, or simply slave, her role on the ship ignored. She could have been a fighter, a navigator, a leader, but to the Empire she was just another body to be sold. Some became domestic servants, scrubbing floors in colonial homes. Others faced concubinage, their bodies claimed by officials or merchants. This wasn't just punishment. It was erasure, a way to ensure no one would remember their names. This fate was deliberate. The Empire didn't always need a public spectacle to crush rebellion. Forcing a female pirate into servitude sent a quieter but equally chilling message: defy us, and you'll vanish. A woman who once stood on a ship's deck shouting orders into the wind might end up in a kitchen or plantation, her courage reduced to whispers in the dark. The system was built to break her, not just physically but existentially. By stripping her identity, the Empire ensured she'd inspire no one else. Think of another woman, perhaps Amina, captured off West Africa in 1690. She'd joined a pirate crew to escape a life of oppression, her knowledge of coastal waters making her invaluable. But when her ship was taken, her captors saw only her race and gender. Sold to a Portuguese trader, she was sent to a sugar plantation in Brazil. Her days of freedom, of navigating by the stars, were gone. Her story, like Maria's, was never written down. The Empire's silence was as powerful as its gallows, erasing her from history's pages. This resonates today. Marginalized voices, women, people of color, those who defy norms are still silenced, their stories buried under systems of power. The female pirates who faced servitude weren't just punished for piracy. They were punished for daring to be free, for challenging a world that confined them. Their erasure mirrors modern struggles. Think of whistleblowers, activists, or anyone who speaks out and faces ostracism. The Empire's tactics, shame, silence, control, haven't vanished, they've just changed form. Social media bans, canceled careers, or ignored voices echo the plantations and households where these women were sent. What can we learn? Servitude was a hidden horror, but it couldn't fully extinguish defiance. Maria, Amina, and countless others carried their courage, even in chains. Their stories, though buried, whisper to us through the cracks of history. They challenge us to question who gets erased and why, who controls the narrative. The Empire wanted these women forgotten, but their lives demand we remember. They were more than victims. They were rebels, fighters, dreamers. Their silence is a call to action, to uncover the hidden, to speak for the silenced, to ensure their defiance lives on. Imagine standing in Maria's shoes, your hands calloused from a life at sea, now forced to scrub a stranger's floor. What would you hold on to? Your pride? Your memories? These women's stories ask us to honor them, to dig deeper into history's shadows. They urge us to fight for those whose voices are stolen today. As you picture that market in Portobello, ask yourself, what does it mean to be free when power tries to erase you? Share your thoughts below, because these women's stories deserve to be told. Trapped in a rotting ship's hold, you're a female pirate surrounded by darkness and disease. The world forgets you, but your defiance burns. Will your courage outlive this silent tomb, or will the Empire's cruelty erase you forever? This chilling truth demands your attention. It's the 1720s off the coast of Kingston, Jamaica. The air is heavy with the stench of decay, and the ship you're on creaks like a dying beast. You're a female pirate, shackled below deck in a prison ship, a forgotten relic of the British Navy. The walls ooze damp rot, and the only sounds are the groans of fellow prisoners and the lapping of waves outside. In the Golden Age of Piracy, not every female pirate faced the gallows spectacle. Some met a slower, quieter end in these floating tombs, where death came not with a crowd's roar but with silence. These ships weren't just prisons. They were the Empire's way of erasing you, body and soul. When land jails overflowed, the British turned to decommissioned warships, stripped of sails and anchored in harbors like Kingston, Plymouth, or Portsmouth. These hulks were never meant for human confinement, yet they held pirates, rebels, and outcasts deemed enemies of the crown. The conditions were hellish. Below deck, you're crammed into a hold so tight you can't stand. The air is thick with unwashed bodies and disease, typhus, dysentery, smallpox spreading like wildfire. Food, if it comes, is moldy bread or gruel crawling with weevils. Water is scarce, often brackish. For female pirates, the horrors were worse. Guards, unchecked by authority, exploited the vulnerable. Abuse was common, though rarely recorded. Your name, your story, your defiance, all were meant to vanish in this darkness. Imagine Anne, a pirate captured off Nassau in 1719. She'd sailed with a crew that struck fear into merchant ships, her laughter as bold as her blade. When her ship was taken, she expected a quick trial, maybe a noose. Instead, she was chained in a prison ship's hold, her world reduced to shadows and sickness. Typhus took her strength, then her life, before the gallows could. Her name was never recorded, her courage buried with her. Anne's story, like so many, was lost to history's selective memory, a casualty of the Empire's need to forget those who dared too much. These prison ships were tools of oblivion. The Empire didn't always need a public execution to crush rebellion. Letting you waste away in silence was just as effective. Female pirates were especially vulnerable. Society saw them as anomalies, women who fought, sailed, and lived like men. Their presence challenged the order of a world that confined women to domesticity. On these ships, that challenge was erased. No crowds watched, no scribes noted your passing. Disease, starvation, or abuse claimed you, and history turned its back. The records, if they existed, were vague, lumping women with other prisoners, or omitting them entirely. Picture another woman, perhaps Lila, captured off the Carolinas in 1722. She'd joined a pirate crew to escape a life of servitude, her skill with ropes and sails earning her a place among outcasts. But on a prison ship, her strength meant nothing. Shackled in a hold where sunlight never reached, she faced relentless hunger and fever. Guards taunted her, knowing no one would care. Her death, likely from dysentery, was a footnote, if that. The Empire didn't need to hang her. Her absence served their purpose. Lila's story, like Anne's, was swallowed by the sea, a silent end to a life of defiance. This wasn't just neglect, it was strategy. Prison ships hid the Empire's cruelty, letting it fester out of sight. Female pirates, already rare, were doubly erased, their gender and crimes making them unworthy of record. The Empire wanted no legends, no tales to inspire others. By letting you die in silence, they ensured your story wouldn't spark rebellion. Yet in that darkness your defiance lingered. A whispered curse, a refusal to beg. These were your final acts, small but unbroken. Today, this resonates deeply. Systems still silence those who challenge them, burying their stories in obscurity. Think of modern parallels. Marginalized groups, women, minorities, activists, whose voices are ignored or suppressed. The prison ships of the 1700s are gone, but their echoes remain in prisons, detention centers, or even digital blackouts where dissenters are silenced. Female pirates faced these hulks not just for piracy, but for daring to be free, to live beyond society's rules. Their erasure mirrors the struggles of those today who fight to be heard, only to face dismissal or worse. What can we learn? Prison. Ships were tombs, but they couldn't bury courage. Anne, Lila, and countless others carried their defiance to the end, even in silence. Their stories, though hidden, whisper through history's cracks. They challenge us to question who gets forgotten and why. Who writes the narrative? The Empire wanted these women erased, but their lives demand we remember. They were rebels, fighters, dreamers, not just prisoners. Their silence is a call to action, to uncover the hidden, to speak for the silenced, to ensure their courage lives on. Imagine yourself in that hold, the air choking you, the world forgetting you. What would you hold on to? Your pride? Your memories of the sea? These women's stories ask us to honor them, to dig into history's shadows. They urge us to fight for those whose voices are stolen today. As you picture that rotting ship, ask yourself, what does it mean to defy a world that wants you gone? Share your thoughts below, because these women's stories deserve to echo through time. Your name could be erased, your courage buried by a world that fears you. You're a female pirate defiant to the end. Will your story inspire rebellion? Or will the Empire's silence win? This truth will ignite your soul. Don't let it pass you by. The tale of female pirates isn't just about stormy seas or flashing blades. It's about power. Raw, unyielding power that sought to crush anyone who dared defy it. Every shackle, every lash, every forgotten name was a weapon, forged to send a chilling message. Challenge the Empire, challenge your place, and you'll vanish. In the Golden Age of Piracy, women like Bonny and Mary Red became legends, their names carved into history's margins. But most female pirates weren't so lucky. Their stories were buried, their defiance erased by a system that trembled at their audacity. This wasn't just punishment, it was a deliberate act of obliteration, and its echoes still haunt us today. Why were these women silenced? A female pirate wasn't just a threat to merchant ships. She was a threat to the very order of the world, gender, empire, control. A woman wielding a cutlass, shouting orders into the wind, challenged everything society held sacred. The British Admiralty, with its laws, courts, and gallows, needed to crush that challenge. Rigged trials condemned them before they spoke. Whips scarred their bodies to warn others. Servitude or prison ships hid them from history's gaze. Each act was a brick in a wall of silence, built to ensure no one would follow their path. Female pirates weren't just punished for piracy, they were punished for daring to be free. Picture the countless women whose names we'll never know. A pirate captured off the Carolinas in 1718 might have fought as fiercely as Bonny, her laughter echoing across the waves. But her story ended in a plantation's shadows or a prison ship's hold, unrecorded. The Empire didn't just want her dead, it wanted her forgotten. Court records, if they mentioned her, called her woman, pirate, or slave, stripping her of identity. This erasure was no accident. It was a strategy, a way to kill the myth of the female pirate before it could spread. The Empire feared her story because stories inspire, and inspiration breeds rebellion. Consider a woman like Sarah, imagined but rooted in truth, who sailed in 1720. She'd fled a life of servitude, joining a pirate crew for freedom's taste. Her skill with a pistol made her a leader, her name whispered in Nassau's taverns. When her ship was taken, she faced a choice: plead for mercy or stand tall. She chose defiance, spitting at her captors as they sentenced her to servitude. Sold to a merchant in Jamaica, her days became toil, her nights a battle to remember who she was. No scribe wrote her story, no ballad sang her name. Sarah's courage was buried, but it wasn't gone. It lingered, a spark waiting to be found. This legacy of fear and erasure wasn't just about the past. It shaped the future. By silencing female pirates, the Empire ensured their stories wouldn't inspire others. No legends meant no heroes. No rallying cry for women trapped in society's cages. The trials, gallows, whips, and prison ships were all tools to maintain control, to keep power in the hands of men, of empires, of the status quo. Yet in their defiance, these women left cracks in that power. Bonny's sharp tongue, Mary Reed's hidden identity, Sarah's unbowed spirit, these were acts of resistance, proof that even in chains they refused to be fully erased. Today, this resonates with striking clarity. Systems still silence those who challenge them. Women, minorities, rebels of all kinds. Think of modern parallels: activists who expose truth and face exile, whistleblowers whose lives are dismantled, or women who break barriers only to be vilified. The Empire's tactics, shame, silence, erasure, haven't vanished, they've evolved. Social media bans, canceled careers, or ignored, voices echo the prison ships and plantations where female pirates were sent. Their stories remind us that defiance comes at a cost, but it also plants seeds for change. Reflect on someone like Aisha, a fictional modern echo of these pirates. She's a journalist in 2025, exposing corruption in a powerful institution. Her work sparks outrage, but the backlash is swift. Online harassment, threats, her account suspended. The system doesn't need a gallows, it uses silence, pushing her to the margins. Aisha's fight mirrors the female pirate's struggle. To be heard, to be remembered, to matter. Their courage inspires us to support those like her, to amplify the silenced, to refuse the Empire's script. What can we learn? The legacy of female pirates isn't in dusty records, it's in their defiance. They faced a world that wanted them gone and still stood tall. Their erasure was meant to scare, but their courage inspires. They challenge us to question, who controls history? Who decides who's remembered? The Roman historian Tacitus said, "The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws." Female pirates face those laws and refuse to bow. Their stories demand we act, to uncover the hidden, to speak for the forgotten, to ensure their defiance lives on. Imagine standing on a ship's deck, the wind in your hair, knowing the world will try to erase you. What would you do? These women fought, loved, and died for freedom. Their legacy asks us to do the same, not with swords, but with voices, with stories, with truth. They urge us to dig into history's shadows, to honor the silenced, to fight for a world where no one's courage is buried. As you picture their faces, ask yourself, what does it mean to defy a world that wants you silent? Share your thoughts below, because these women's stories deserve to burn bright.